she wouldn't leave the hos- she wouldn't leave the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway,
So you, okay, what kind
she
of
wasn't
liver?
even she wasn't even listed. She wasn't on the national list that Friday when I took her in.
Mm-hmm.
We went up, they put her on the third floor. Then she went into AFib Monday morning. So we spent Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in ICU till they got her heart regulated. And they listed her Tuesday night, and we went down to the floor on Wednesday. And about 9 o'clock Wednesday night, they called with a soft time.
I see Luigi.
And on Thursday, she started surgery, and then they finished Friday on Valentine's Day.
Amazing.
Gotcha.
I see some new faces. Hi, David. Wait, let me say hello to you. I'm going to unmute you. How do I do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Has to unmute. Oh, I can't. I have to ask. Well, I'm saying hello to everyone. I'm greeting.
There it is.
Did you all hear about this in different ways? I've obviously everybody here has an interest in transplant.
Mhm.
Either you've had a transplant and you want to continue being part of our community, or maybe you're on the transplant list, or maybe you're just an interested person who wants to know more about it, because it is something that you do feel like you're in a very small minority in the world. Am I right?
Mhm.
So tonight I'm here with Rob, my husband, who brought me into the transplant world through his liver transplant that he had September 10, 2020. And look how good he's looking.
Feel great.
He feels great. And we feel like it's sort of our duty or something
Our
to,
journey to try to help people through the process
right.
of going through a transplant, what to expect at each stage. Every Tuesday we have a support group from the Mayo Clinic, and Paul is one of our regulars, and so is Luigi. And we just try to get you through the transplant process. You know what it means to, with the MELD score and having a great caregiver like Paul and I have, and Luigi with Daniela, and we become like a family in this whole thing. And don't be embarrassed to ask any questions, because that's what we're here for. And we'll try to help you as much as we can. So giving back is what we're here for. And
I think that many people are lucky if you have sort of a mentor through this process. And we had a transplant friend who was, well, he's now what, 15 years out? Is he 15? So, and I had a caregiver friend who I met through one of these support groups, who kind of would warn me of what was to come. And early on in the process, everybody's journey is different, but I wrote this book, Saved by a Stranger, not just about our journey, but I really wanted to understand different types of liver disease, what other people go through. And I needed to write it during the time to kind of get through the process and get my mind off of worrying so much. So it gave me something to do. Hi, Ruth. And so tonight, there's many different chapters in here, but I'm going to introduce Luigi, who's become a dear friend of ours. And
so since we have a small group, let's have everyone introduce themselves.
yes, please. How do we, can you all just unmute? Because I'm not into the muting.
Okay, David, how are you here at Saved by a Stranger?
My wife has been pretty active in trying to sort of figure out, what support might be for us, as I start my bridge therapy on Monday, before my transplant, ultimately.
Okay.
And so she, she's been amazing in terms of, she's really kind of my eyes and ears for this whole process to some extent, and, a really good advocate for me. So
Is your wife Paige?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so she reached out to me. I'm so glad you joined. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a 3-year-old that she's putting to sleep right now, so that's why she's not here with me.
And what transplant center are you with?
Tampa General Hospital.
Okay. Do they have a support group there?
I think so, yeah. They definitely have a lot of resources. I'm pretty sure that I saw some literature about that. It's now just sort of getting to the point where I'm actually kind of, in process. It's kind of taken a little bit of time. So I haven't participated in anything yet. But now that, treatment's about to begin and I'm about to kind of go through the journey, we may look into those things that are available.
And
Hey, David, if you don't mind me asking, what's your
Sure.
diagnosis?
I have PSC, and my PSC has unfortunately manifested in cholangiocarcinoma in one of my bile ducts. It's very small. It's very early. It barely shows up on imaging. One of the reasons why we even know that it's cancer is because I've had to have a biliary catheter that goes straight into the bile duct to hold it open so that I can have a decent quality of life for the last 3 months. And they were able to take a biopsy recently through that. So.
and
Yeah,
how
you look quite young, and I started my journey at 25 years old, and so
Yeah, I just turned 39.
Yeah. So it's a long journey, but it's you have to enjoy all the ride. Like it's good that the most information you get. I think one of the first things that we need when we're entering the world of transplant is information, because we want to source what we have or how we do it. And one of the things I found is it's very difficult to find support groups. Okay, Facebook now with Facebook you can do it, but 20 years ago there was nothing. I mean, there were really, and it did make a difference in my transplant and post-transplant. We have a group, as Rob was saying, we have a group that we meet once a week, and we can clear and vent out all our issues, so that's good. Ruth, by the way, lovely nose. I saw you on the blood work before your surgery. Wow, I want an autograph now.
I'm Judy O'Connor.
Hi, Judy.
Hi.
Thanks.
Thank you for offering this. I had a heart transplant.
Wow.
So I'm not sure if everyone's had a liver transplant on this forum.
Last month, we had a heart transplant
You
recipient.
did?
Yes.
It makes my heart so happy when a heart transplant person.
Yeah. I had a journey, that's for sure. I had a question though. What is PSC? Is that a liver disease?
Yeah, so that's called primary sclerosing cholangitis.
Okay.
Rob had that as well.
That's what I had.
Really? Okay. And when did you have your transplant, Rob?
September 20th, 2020.
No, September 10th.
September 20th.
Oh, yes. The date you never forget, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, 2020.
But I don't know, David, how long you were diagnosed. Rob had it for 18 years.
Yes.
My God.
I've known about it for about 10 years.
Okay. So
That
similar.
does, I mean, obviously I probably had it, right? Because you have it, but whether, it was affecting me much for a long time is probably wasn't. So.
Are you on ursodiol right now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Did you try vancomycin at all?
No, I did not. Obviously now I'm to the point where, wouldn't necessarily make a difference because I'm trying to get a replacement, but we have seen, pretty positive things coming from what they're doing with that, but I wasn't put on that yet.
Okay, I requested it from my doctor and it did bring all my LFTs, liver function tests, down. So I was on that for 2 years before my transplant. So
Interesting.
Yeah, so it did work. That was a study they did, and it helped bring my LFTs down. So, but what kind of MELD score are you at right now?
Well, I have to finish the bridge therapy before I get the points that I should get, because that's what they require.
Okay.
So I don't have a full score yet. I mean, they think I'll be 25 or more once that happens.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that puts you up there in the list. I mean, I was transplanted with 22.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and I also had exception points due to I had the HCC, and that's how we got it.
Mhm. Yeah.
David, you go to Tampa General?
Yes, I do.
I've been going there. I had my transplant in Boston, but we moved to Florida and I go there for my
Yeah,
care
Tampa General.
at the transplant center.
That's really interesting, just the connection there, because I actually had to have a Whipple surgery because
Ooh.
they
Big procedure.
found suspicious cells earlier on that wasn't actually cancer in my bile duct, in my common bile duct. So they got rid of that back in 2016, but that was at Mass General, coincidentally.
Oh, wow.
But I live in Sarasota and we've been here the whole time, but I just
Okay.
had to basically move up there for that surgery because that's where my liver specialist is.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I'm sure you were in good care there and you're going to be in good care. They're going to take good care of you at Tampa General.
Definitely.
I wish you the
How are,
best.
how are your spirits?
How are my spirits? They're really good, actually. I think that I've kind of fallen into a situation where I am in the best spot of a bad situation because of the fact that I have this very, very small amount of cancer cells. I should be able to get a transplant quicker. And so I'm not going to have to go through necessarily, a diminishing quality of life based upon the PSC wreaking havoc on my liver and what that does to the body.
Yeah.
And, I'm pretty young, I'm healthy otherwise. And I feel like I'm going to be going into it, strong and, just crossing my fingers that everything works out and that potentially, the PSC never comes back, or certainly not anytime soon.
Right. Yeah, that's something that we do worry about, that it can come back, the PSC. And so far, knock on wood, I'm okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I've heard lots of stories of like decades where it hasn't come back.
Yeah.
The other promising thing is like the treatments that you're talking about that they're making some progress with. Maybe if it does come back way down the road, they've got something to combat it. So,
Right. So Ruth, we haven't seen you in a while. What's going on with you?
Oh, it was crazy. We after transplant, my mother died. 10 months later, my father died. And then our youngest daughter announced that she was going to have a baby. And my husband, who swore that he was going to die in that house, said, "We're putting the house up for sale. We're moving."
The house in Long Island, the house in Long Island.
The house in Long Island. So we sold our house. We told our neighbor it was sold the same day that we said we wanted to sell. And we decided to move to Pennsylvania, of all places.
Okay.
So, and the reason we chose Pennsylvania is only 13 miles away from our daughter. But with my husband's retirement from New York State, if we would have moved to New Jersey, he would have been taxed, not in PA.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So we moved from a 3,000 square feet home, maybe 10 miles from the ocean, to a 1,500 square feet home in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, great.
But, we're getting used to it. We love it. So it was just crazy, moving. The baby was born 2 weeks ago. He was done a little premature. So, but thank God he's doing fine.
Congratulations.
Congrats. Yeah.
And we've just been crazy for the past 2 weeks. You're going to my daughter's house, taking care of her, helping her out. And it's just been we decided in October and everything happened like overnight.
Wow.
Life after transplant.
That's right.
Like transplant, it was like, trying to move out of a house that we lived in for 43 years. With, a huge house, 6 bedrooms to a 1,500 square feet home was not easy.
Yeah.
But it's just the two of us. We didn't need a big house anymore
Yeah.
with the big problems, with the big burn and cleaning it.
Yeah.
I'm 67 years old. I can't do that anymore.
Hear you. Wow.
So, and then we also have Dale, who's not visible, but thank you for joining us, Dale. So Luigi is the subject of tonight's Meet a Transplant Stranger. And he has a stranger that next to him, a furry animal that he just adopted, right?
Yeah, my service dog passed away in February 28 after 6 years of being with me. And now I got this little one and we're going to start the process. And
where are you calling in from, Luigi?
I'm in central Mexico right now. I came, part of my journey after transplant, had a lot of complications. I was quite healthy and led a healthy life till transplant. And then after transplant, I had to have 2 surgeries and then ended up being 40 days in hospital because of plumbing issues. And I basically, I felt sick after transplant, not prior to transplant, but I'm back to normal, I guess, or trying to get back to normal. But if you want, I don't know if you want to, how you want to, the dynamics that we want to do, should we do it about me or should we do more about questions? We're such a small group that we can change the dynamic if you feel like it more than knowing about me. We can probably see if anybody needs any help or if you want to listen to my story, I'd be more than glad to share it.
Yeah, so let's read your story. If anyone has any questions to ask you, and then we'll just open it up to a discussion with everyone through the transplant process.
So Ruth also has a chapter, by the way, as well. But, I just want to say that I had to include Luigi because he had the most positive attitude, which, like you, David, really helped him, I think, going in. And it helped Rob because Rob was so physically sick. The PSC ravaged him completely. And it ravaged his brain as well. I mean, he was just depressed and he was just giving up.
A lot of loss of weight, itching, as you know, David,
And
with all the itching going on.
but when we first heard Luigi on one of these Zoom things, I said, Rob needs to talk to him. He needs that positive, because so much of everything is in your brain and how you process what's going on. So chapter 30, Luigi, the luckiest man on earth. That's the title of his chapter. Time is a precious commodity, said Luigi, also called Luis, with his slight Mexican accent as he handed Rob a custom watch from one liver transplant patient to another. Time is something we both appreciate and need more of. You get the dog.
Yeah.
Luigi describes himself
Really?
as the luckiest man on earth. After hearing his story, I understood why. Raised in an affluent home in the outskirts of Mexico City, Luigi is the free-spirited eldest of 4. He is tall with a commanding voice and a positive outlook on life. His father founded a manufacturing company that supported at least 60 local families working there. I was privileged without being spoiled, Luigi said. My dad wanted me to work in the factory, starting at the bottom like everyone else, study and do things his way. But I'm not good at taking orders, he admitted. We butted heads when I was a teenager, and in anger, he told one of the maids to pack my things, put them in my car, and told me, the day you become a man of good, you are welcome in this house. So I left home when I was 17 and never returned. For a while, he was homeless, sleeping under a bridge, on the streets, and picking up food from trash containers. Luigi survived by doing all kinds of work in the service industry, later traveling back and forth from Mexico to Los Angeles, catering events. Mostly, he worked for himself and slowly built up sales career. I was young, having fun, and learned how to take care of myself, he explained. It's called the University of Life. Eventually, he and his father began communicating again, and their relationship healed. In 1997, Luigi was working as a gentle organizer, GO, at the Club Med Resort in Cancun. One day, he spotted a beautiful young woman who was there on vacation. Daniela had grown up in Lebanon, but now lived in London. A kindergarten teacher, she had only 2 days left before returning home. When I saw Daniela, I knew that this was a train I needed to get on, Luigi said with a grin. I noticed Luigi, but he was not my type. He had long curly hair and was very serious, never smiled, Daniela recounted, but something about him attracted me. After she returned to London, Luigi sent her flowers with a note. This Mexican GO misses you. I did the craziest thing of my life, Daniela admitted. Just 2 months later in July, I went all the way across the world by myself to see him again. After some ups and downs and misunderstandings, Luigi asked her to come to Mexico City to meet his parents. He quit his job and they flew out the next morning. Daniela felt a cultural kinship with Luigi's family because of her Mediterranean and German background. Being with his family reminded me of our way of living, she said. She went home after 10 days and Luigi traveled to London the following month. He proposed in the most romantic way, Daniela joked, while I was on the white commode throne. It just highlighted the craziness of our story, Luigi laughed. They were married in London in October and Daniela got pregnant on her wedding night. Suddenly their travel and party plans changed. Who cares about planning, Luigi recounted. Life is one day at a time. They moved to Mexico and after a lovely church wedding in the town of Taxco, they began their life together in Cuernavaca. On July 6, 1998, their daughter Vanessa was born. That was the last day Luigi's father left the house. He had battled for several years with both colon and liver cancer. He went to the hospital to see his granddaughter saying, some new lives arrive and some old lives are ready to go. Luigi's father had made some poor decisions in his last year when he did not have the strength to battle certain family members who took control of his company. What Luigi later realized was that one potential effect of end-stage liver disease is that patients often do not make clear decisions because their liver is not processing toxins, which clouds their judgment. In a twist of fate, at the end of 1998, soon after his father died, Luigi began to feel tired with pain on his upper right side of his liver. A hepatologist in Mexico diagnosed him with hepatitis B and C, explaining that eventually he would need a transplant. He immediately went to the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, where Dr. Spivey, who had performed his father's liver resection 2 years earlier, was now director of the liver transplant team. At the time, Luigi had excellent private health insurance, which Mayo Clinic accepted. Your liver does not look that bad, Dr. Spivey told him, Down the line, you might need a transplant, but for now, no drinking alcohol, and we should just keep an eye on it every 6 months. Given the potential for Luigi's health deterioration, Daniela was worried about having more children, but in 2001, they had a second daughter, Valerie. The family was living in Mexico, traveling frequently. At a regular Mayo Clinic checkup in 2005, Luigi's hepatologist, Dr. Raj, brought concerning news. Your liver now has cirrhosis with a lesion. We would like you to relocate to Jacksonville and be on the active transplant list. Luigi sold almost everything the family had and they moved. We had a little bit of savings and I began selling things on eBay, he said. We had a tourist visa. Our daughters and Daniela are German citizens through Daniela's father. So every 90 days, they were required to leave the United States. Flying to Mexico every 3 months became expensive, so Luigi created his own company that designed watches. He had to prove that he had a background in jewelry through his grandmother, who had been a well-known silversmith, even designing a necklace for Eleanor Roosevelt. This business enabled them to obtain a NAFTA visa and remain in the US legally. As Luigi was prone to tuberculosis, doctors began treating with isoniazid and antibiotic. Within weeks, he developed isoniazid liver failure and his body became yellow with jaundice. The surgeon was pushing for an immediate transplant with a possible second-grade liver, but Dr. Raj wanted to see if Luigi's liver would correct itself on its own. After stopping this medicine, his liver naturally recovered, and they took him off the transplant wait list. At that point, I was very sick and needed help doing basic things, Luigi remembered. But I said to Daniela, before I die, let's make love one more time. I've never planned anything in my whole life, and unexpectedly, Daniela became pregnant again. They went to see a doctor to assess the risks of complications for the baby based on Luigi's medications. He was having plasma transfusions and taking a drug called interferon with terrible side effects. Thankfully, the doctor said, God sends miracles at the strangest times in the strangest ways. Your baby is fine. Luigi told Dr. Raj that he was quitting all the aggressive drugs he was taking to control the hepatitis because he simply wanted to enjoy being an active father. This is not something you want to mess around with, Dr. Raj said, but Luigi wanted to make the most of his life. His son, Luigi Jr., was born December 8, 2006, on the birthday of Luigi's father. Several years went by. The family moved to a small house near Houston, Texas, and stopped travel except for going to the Mayo Clinic for yearly checkups. Even though I knew it would be a huge financial cost, I decided not to work much because I wanted to be at every school event and every milestone in our children's lives, Luigi said. In 2013, Daniela began working in real estate, and with mounting legal fees to extend and reapply for their visas, they were considering moving to Germany or Mexico. Then something happened that changed their fate. Instead of planning ahead, I ended up planting ahead, Luigi said, laughing. Many years ago, way before I met Daniela, I had a brief affair with a woman in Los Angeles. Facebook had just become popular, and I got a message from this woman telling me that her 20-year-old son named Luis Carlos was hanging out with the wrong crowd and had just been shot, and that he was my son. After much thought, I decided to contact him. While we could not get back and change the past, I invited him to meet and build a fresh relationship so we could be part of each other's lives now. This is one of the best decisions I've made. Luis Carlos, my eldest son, has a great heart and is a good kid. Luigi learned that his name was on his birth certificate, and because his son had been a minor at the time, he and Daniela married. She was legally considered his stepmother. Therefore, both Luigi and Daniela could become legal residents of the United States. Soon, they will be able to apply for U.S. citizenship. Isn't that amazing? Luigi's health remained stable until early 2020 when he was rushed to the ER with terrible pain. Daniela had a new job in relocation industry with health insurance benefits, so she was able to add Luigi. The doctor came in front of their children, told them that Luigi not only had a kidney stone, he also had liver cancer with 3 lesions. Luigi turned around to see Daniela and his daughters crying, but assured them that he would be okay. In April 2020, Luigi rekindled his relationship with Mayo Clinic and began going back and forth from Houston to Jacksonville for treatments. In May, he had a minimally invasive procedure targeting 2 of his tumors. In June, before having an ablation to destroy abnormal tissue, Luigi tested positive for COVID-19. The doctor was kind enough to go ahead and do the procedure by putting him in a special room before the anesthesia. The 3 lesions were gone by the end of June. Following protocol set by UNOS, Luigi had to wait 6 months after treatment of cancerous tumors to obtain exception points, allowing him to be actively listed for liver transplant. On December 22nd, 2020, his exception points kicked in, raising his MELD score from 7 to 22, an acceptable number for transplant. The entire family flew to Jacksonville, including Daniela's mother, her brother, and sister-in-law, and rented a home near the Mayo Clinic. Miraculously, Luigi was called for transplant the very next day. In an interview with him shortly before his transplant, he told me, "I am the luckiest man on earth. My father's liver surgery at Mayo Clinic in Rochester led me to come to Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. Meeting Daniela was winning the lottery. We've been married 23 years and have a wonderful family. I've always been a positive person, believing that everything happens for a reason. I'm not worried because the universe has a plan that things happen at the right place at the right time." On Christmas morning, Luigi received his liver transplant. Everything went well, and he was released from the hospital on schedule. "I was put on steroids right after surgery," he explained, "and I felt like hunting lions in the forest. I was eating well, walking around, and feeling great." At a follow-up visit, Luigi asked to see the pathology report of his old liver. Afterwards, they discovered something unbelievable. Hidden from all the previous scans taken was a 4th lesion on the back of his liver. Once again, I'm the luckiest man on earth, because had that tumor been detected, I would not have been a candidate for transplant. Having more than 3 tumors disqualifies a patient today. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until it wasn't. A month after his surgery, Luigi began to have excruciating pain. After many tests, he was admitted to the hospital with an elevated temperature, and doctors detected poor blood flow going to his liver. They tried procedures, including an angiogram to unblock the vein. Then Dr. Nugent, who performed Luigi's liver transplant, had to deliver unfortunate news. He explained that I had something called hepatic artery stenosis, which means when they closed, somehow one of the arteries was pinched. The only way to fix it was to go back in, and it would be even more complicated than a liver transplant. This surgery took longer than the transplant. I had no choice but to have this, but I was not prepared for the toll it would take on my body, Luigi admitted. The constant pain was unbelievable, and I spent many nights crying. The macho was certainly taken away from this Mexican. At first, I was angry. I was a few days from going home feeling great, and then everything started going wrong. Why was this happening to me? Financially, it was a burden. I felt so guilty because my whole family team was stuck here because of me. For the first time since my illness, I had no input in my care. I've always been a patient who wants to discuss options, but I was just too weak. After leaving the hospital, he had to return a short time later with severe pain. A tiny hole between the donor's bile duct and his own had caused a staph infection. Bile is so acidic and aggressive that my body protected itself with water, and I could feel my lungs filling up, he said. It was a struggle to breathe. Doctors put him on round-the-clock antibiotics with a drain to prevent sepsis. When he was released again, he still had IVs in him. We had to stay near the Mayo Clinic until the bile drain had healed, Daniela chimed in during our video interview. Administering Luigi's 2 IVs by myself was a nightmare. I set alarms for everything. One of them was administered every 12 hours and took 2 hours to empty. The other one was every 6 hours and lasted an hour. Neither one of us could sleep much at all. I was just waiting for Daniela to put on that kinky nurse outfit, Luigi joked. That was not going to happen, she responded, smiling. On March 11, Luigi had another angiogram done to fix the stenosis. He also had an aneurysm of the liver. Doctors placed a stent in the donor vein because it was collapsing. This procedure made him feel much better. I was 100% dependent on Daniela, Luigi confessed. My concern was that she needed to recharge her battery. The caregivers have such a special role and need their own support group. I look forward to my Tuesday virtual support group meetings. Finally, Luigi's body began to heal and he was able to go home. While transplant patients usually reach out to their donor families 6 months post-transplant, Luigi actually received a letter from his donor's family, and they have been corresponding. The universe aligns things, Luigi concluded. If you look back on all the small things that occurred, it was all meant to happen. I'm grateful to be among the very few people in this world who have been given a second chance through transplant.
Yep.
Beautiful
Nice.
story.
Nice story.
So Luigi, how do you feel today?
Well, see, it's funny because emotions keep on coming no matter how far after. First off, what amazes me is one of let me just add these here because I have my notes of what I wanted to say because my brain is not as bright as it used to. Yeah. First off, the first thing I want to say is that what amazes me is that Saved by a Stranger is a byproduct of a coping mechanism that Leslie needed in order to go through her husband's transplant. And I have to thank you immensely because your work and the way you did it by making it not only private, you created this book, you're giving these spaces and pushing and promoting and helping. That's probably one of the first things that we do post-transplant. When we finally heal after everything, we feel an obligation to give back or to pay forward what we received. And not everybody knows how to do it. I think you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
You're gifted and keep going. There's more. We're only a few today, but eventually there'll be a time where you're going to have a big crowd behind you.
Well, it's all because of your stories and your honesty and your just true emotion. I mean, that's what I love about this. People, they're stripped down and then they're built back up again, right? So it really brings out the essence of who you are and the gratitude.
Yeah, you know what? Just Luigi, just kind of tell, since David's going to go through the process now of it after transplant, what is it that the meds that we take? I mean, for me, I only take, the tacrolimus, but what are some of the medicines that you take?
So I think everybody has, first off, we need to say we're not doctors, right? You have an experience with your heart transplant and it's different from probably my liver or David's liver or Ruth or Paula. We like to speak about ourselves, but I think something that we're needing in the community is a place where we can chat of what's going on, because one of the big things I find is that everybody wants to be the start of the, everybody wants to be, there's a word, like the protagonic of the transplant. What happens in a lot of, like for example, I had an issue with my health where I needed to find a doctor locally in Houston, and the hospital in Houston wanted me to give off Mayo Clinic. I had to transfer all my case to the Methodist in Houston in order for them to let me in, or even to go to their support group. So I believe that every transplant center, they're in a way egoistic. They have their own protocols and their own systems. Yeah. And we can only speak about how great our transplant was, or Boston or Tampa, or or where we're at. I think what we need as a community is we need places like these where we can just log in. We all have a lot of time because we don't go back to our work the way we used to, because the medicines just don't let you do it. I mean, for me, tacrolimus, I used to be so sharp-minded and had everything right here. I forget things. I mean, we did a trip recently, and when we came into Mexico City, my wife turned around and said, "You forgot to buy the return tickets." And I was like, "No, I'm sure I bought them," and I didn't. So for everybody, drugs after transplant, for me, the tacrolimus, I was on a lot of medicines. I was taking like 27 pills a day the first 4 months.
Mhm.
And that took a toll on my body. I mean, I was super healthy prior to transplant, and post-transplant, I lost my hair, I gained weight, not to want to compete with women, but now I have, my breasts are growing and my nipples are hurting. I mean, I just need to get, this new reality is difficult to.
Your teeth?
My teeth fell off. So that's why I'm here in Mexico City, because they had me 6 months on antibiotic 24/7. That damaged all of my upper teeth. They became loose, all of them. I tried to make a claim with insurance, and the insurance company told me that this was cosmetic. And I'm like, my teeth were perfectly fine. How can this be cosmetic? Of course, I don't have the time or the means to find a lawyer and try and fight it. So my best option was to come down to Mexico and see how it goes. You do it for a fraction of the price of the US. Somebody wanted $60,000 to arrange my mouth in the US.
Right.
I'm gonna pay $10,000 down here. So
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so after transplant, they have us on prednisone and then they taper us off. And during prednisone days, we get emotional, right?
oh,
Yeah. You get you might cry, you might, it's just, it does a toll on you. What else? So yeah, the Prograf or the tacrolimus, they start to adjust that during blood work and all. But I mean, I was fine. I didn't have any hair loss or the teeth, loosening, some
gaining weight. I
Gaining
have a
weight.
bump on my back that is called the buffalo hump, and it's due to the steroids. They had me 6 months on steroids.
Mhm.
So, and again, I guess the only thing, because I read and I prepared myself for years. It was such a long process that we tried to gather as much information as possible, trying to reach post-transplant people. And definitely, there's a lot of things they don't tell you. But my philosophy, I've always looked at the worst case scenario, and anywhere before that, I was a winner. And my outcome on life has always been, it doesn't matter what it comes, it's for a reason and it's better. Like I got COVID, so I'm on the waiting period of having these lesions and cancers there, and your mind automatically goes, okay, if it touches a lymph node, then that's it. It's going to spread. It's going to go somewhere else. And having a delay of 4 or 5 extra months because of COVID, that was, for me, I thought it was terrible. But then when I look back at it, and I said to Daniela, it happened for a reason. Look, well, it did. It gave me antibodies. So post-transplant, even though I didn't have the vaccines, I already had antibodies for COVID.
Mhm.
So there's always a good side to everything, and that's it. If I had to give an advice to anybody, is just when you have a question, find someone to answer it, and stay calm. I mean, I believe if you're religious, you can say God. If you are spiritual, you can say the universe. I think the universe aligns. things, and we have to be grateful. This whole experience for me, it's my two big things are, the most amazing thing is my wife. I could have never done this without her. We had an amazing relationship, but these brought us together. It's a bonding process that I love her and admire her even more. My fear was, is she going to be strong enough? Is she ready? Again, as you know, you heard in my story, I didn't plan. I mean, if I knew, if I would have been someone with a little bit more structure, well, you said life insurance or unemployment insurance privately, or you plan ahead. I just went day by day, and I'm not organized. That's just who I am.
Right. Yeah. Same thing with me with, with caregivers. I mean, Leslie, I mean, I called it quits, after getting called twice, and having dry runs. David, a dry run is when you get called, they say they have a liver for you, and you get to the hospital, they inspect the liver, and you're about to go in for surgery, and they say, you know what, this liver doesn't look right. We'll call in a surgery off. So during that time, you're thinking of your child, children, your wife, your friends, your family, and a lot of emotions are going on. Am I going to survive this transplant? And you will. You definitely will survive the transplant. You're healthy enough now. You will survive it. Don't have any doubts about it. But yeah, I mean, you have all these emotions, and then they call it off, you go home, and then a few days or months go by, you don't get a call, finally get a call. So you got to keep that phone next to you constantly. You go in the shower, just put it on the kitchen, on the sink, and just, if it rings, grab it, or give your wife the phone. You got to be next to that phone, because as soon as that phone rings, grab it. It might be your day, So and then I got the second call, same thing. They said it was a hepatitis C liver. Now, with hepatitis C, they can cure it. So you should accept hepatitis C. They'll cure it in what, 90 days, Luigi?
Yeah, so I think there's, depending on the protocol that the transplant center has, but Mayo Clinic has accepted positive, like livers, donors that were positive for Hep B or Hep C. This was not possible 10 years ago, but as of now, they do it. And what they do is post-transplant, they treat you with different medicines. And in 90 days, you're clear from Hep C, and Hep B, you take one pill for life to keep it dormant. And what happens by deciding to go with this type of donor, which basically it's a donor that passed away through cardiac disease. It doesn't have to be a brain dead donor. These cardiac disease were not accepted years ago. Now science has evolved where they have new protocols where they take those grafts and they're available for donation.
As what you had.
That's what I had. I had a CDC liver.
Does anyone have any questions after reading the story for Luigi from what I read?
I don't have a question. I just want to say that it was, you did a great job. What a great way of expressing his journey.
Oh, thank you.
He went through. And I think it's helpful for other transplant patients to hear what they went through. Because, everyone had their own journey and things that happened that were good, that were bad, that were worse, but that were, ended out.
Well, what I tried to do in the book was the main story is our story, and then woven in are chapters from other people that we met along the way. And I wanted the whole person. I wanted to try to get as much of the whole person there, not just the medical, but so you really get a sense of who this character is. if it was.
And I
So,
felt that. I felt you came across.
okay, well, that's good. I mean,
I'm gonna
Luigi.
share with you guys, not
Yeah.
everybody has father and son at Mayo Clinic with
Oh
transplant.
my gosh, look at that.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's amazing.
And didn't you have the same surgeon?
So the story is that my father had his liver recession. It wasn't a liver transplant, it was just a liver recession. Because back in those days, the regulations for liver transplant, if you had 3 tumors, you were not a candidate. You needed to have 2 tumors, and he had 3. And one of them was bigger than 2.5 centimeters. So that's why he couldn't have a transplant. So his only option was a liver recession. And it turns out that Dr. Spivey, who was a surgeon, had his apprentice was Dr. My brain, sorry, again, Tucker Limits. The doctor that was the apprentice, he became he's a senior surgeon at Mayo, and he performed my surgery. So when I met him, I told him, hey, were you with Dr. Spivey on 1996 in Mayo in Rochester? And said, yeah, I used to do all the transplants with him. Well, I said, most probably you did my dad's recession. You were an apprentice there, and now you have the opportunity to do my liver transplant.
Amazing.
The world is weird.
It is.
From one liver to another.
Mhm.
Incredible, incredible. Wow.
So
But
tell
what
me,
I
how
wanted
long-
to touch also, something that we were saying as a subject is that when you want to pay back or what do you do next, I hear a lot of people saying, I want to promote organ donation, and I want to how can I help the ones behind us, no, that they need it. And when I hear everybody saying promoting organ donation, I think I see countries. The US is a country that has a system that is an opt-in. There's countries in Europe where everybody's a donor, unless you have either a religious belief or a personal choice not to be a donor. You put it on your driver's license that you don't want to be a donor.
Mhm.
Interesting.
That's amazing, because then your population of donors would increase. Because what few people know is that out of 100 donors, probably only 2 or 3 are feasible for transplant, because the conditions for those organs to be recovered are so critically specific that for the circumstances to happen, that's why we don't have enough donors. Also, speaking to the surgeon, genetics are moving so fast. He was telling me that probably for my kids, they will be able to grow organs. So Mayo Clinic has already a study where they built, I think, 2 pigs. And what they do is they implant smart cells into the pig, and they build a kidney on that pig. And the pig, so the concept is that you will be able to grow organs artificially, and then you would implant them without ever having to need anti-rejection medicine. That's the future of transplantation, and that's where even I think when Jorge Bacardi that he did the movie, I don't know if you all know about it. He was a transplant patient from Mayo, but Leslie will tell you about him. He funded this study heavily on that.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah, the movie was called Two Hearts.
There's
You should
another,
see it.
yeah, the Bacardi family, his wife Leslie funded the Gabriel House of Care. And Ruth, you stayed there.
Yes, I did.
And I'd like to say Ruth is from New York as well. And so am I correct that your surgeon basically said to you, or your hepatologist, you're going to die in New York, you need to go to Florida?
Yep, that's exactly what he said. He did his internship at the Mayo in Rochester, Minnesota, and he said to me, "You're going to die in New York. You have to go down to the Mayo."
Mhm.
And why did he say you were going to die in New York?
Because in New York, your MEL score has to be 40. before you're considered to be on a transplant list. At 40,
35.
you're dying.
Average is 35.
Well,
Yeah.
Paula had a very high MELD score. She was on 40 something.
I was 43, but I got to 43 at Mayo.
Wow.
When I left down to Mayo, I was 27, and Mount Sinai would not do anything because I was not at 40.
Mm.
So if I had not moved and done the move to go down to the Mayo in Florida, I would have been dead.
So there's somebody on this Zoom that I just want to introduce. He's not visible, but his name's Cleon Edwards, and I see him on here. Hello, Cleon. I'd love you to say hello. And Cleon and I went to college together, and he reached out to me. There you are.
Sorry, I'm babysitting at the same time. So
Well,
yeah.
that's beautiful. We love. Hello, sweetheart.
Thank
Cleo, what hospital are you at? In Queens, New York,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, I'm at Queens Hospital. I'm part of the New York City public hospital system. So we have 11 hospitals in total.
Yeah. Hi, sweetheart.
So I've heard a lot of talk, and I've spoken to Leslie. So we're in the process, particularly myself and folks at my hospital, about learning more about this issue, and I'm trying to work with Leslie to see if we can do something in New York to make transplants more feasible. Try to improve things here in New York so people don't have to leave and go elsewhere to have a chance to survive.
Right.
And also we were talking, Cleon, about educating the nurses, because a lot of the people in the medical field, believe it or not, have fears they have their own fears about being organ donors. Am I correct?
Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity. I'd put it that way, to educate people, including the clinicians or nurses and doctors, and so we have sort of a captive audience, and they're very important in terms of sharing information with the people that we serve. So we want to make sure that they're in a position to get the information they need to sort of be part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Well, this is all, everybody here is my transplant family. I can't do this alone. I need because everybody has such a story to tell. I mean, Paula's story is amazing. Ruth, Luigi, Jerry was last. I mean, it just goes on. And they're all so positive, hopeful, ups and downs, more positives than anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's about 8. We've been doing this for an hour, and it's been wonderful. And I want to just
Luigi, show
So
that.
this is me. This is me post-transplant.
Oh, wow.
That's how sick I got.
Wow.
Luigi,
I'm back to normal. I gained a little bit extra.
Yeah.
I'm like Jerry. Jerry and I were competing to see who's gaining more weight.
Yeah. Luigi, we're going to end it on who your donor was.
Oh, yes. I'd love to hear that story. But really quick, I don't know if David, if you're still on, this was Rob. This was how sick he was. Wait, can you see this? This is the thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He was this before and after. And I put it on the back of the book so people could immediately see the difference in what, especially a liver. I mean, heart, I don't,
That's right.
I mean, is different.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my gosh, it's amazing. I mean, I didn't really know a liver, but really quick, Luigi, if we could end it with something with your donor. You said there was maybe a letter, or
So I received a letter 3 months after my transplant, and it was from, I'm guessing, her mother, but the letter stated it was a family member, and she basically sent me a picture of my donor,
Oh,
who was a 25-year-old female that left a 2-month-old baby behind.
Yeah.
And that's probably the hardest part of my whole process, because I lived a great life. My kids are, the youngest is 15, and I just felt so much guilt. I felt terrible. I to the point where I haven't been able to reply to the second letter. I was fortunate to another friend that actually is in hospital right now, Jerry, that had a transplant on February 28th, but he's had a lot of complications, a little bit like my case. He told me that he met a priest at the hospital and told him that transplantation is like a relay race. And so now I would take that baton as a relay race, and now I had a mission I would have to complete it on behalf of her. But the hardest part is that, honestly, I feel something towards that baby. He's only a year and 3 months today, and I wanted him to know that his mom was a hero. But it's so delicate, because I don't know if I'm overpassing barriers if I tell them that I feel this necessity to be in touch with that baby, and to let him know that his mom saved me and probably 8 more people. And that's where I am today, and in the process of gathering the strength. And the English as a second language, it doesn't make it easy either, but it's not an excuse. I need to set a time and be able to send a letter, and she wants to meet me desperately. I mean, I wanted also to have the anniversary come by. I thought it was going to be too soon if I would push it prior to the anniversary. I made a little speech on my anniversary to my kids saying, well, we're very happy that it's been a year, but today is probably the saddest day for a family on the other side. What I've done is I've recorded everything, and I have a video story of everything to give my donor family when I meet them.
Special.
Beautiful. I know. I mean, I don't know, actually. I can't imagine. I mean, it's sort of like, sending your child to war. You really don't know what that would feel like if they don't come home. And it's just that ache, that loss, but it is passing the baton, like you said, and living with guilt is not living, really.
Yeah, I don't know if guilt is the right thing, because in what worth transplant for me is humility. It showed me to be humbled in so many ways. We are all born with a tic-tac, right? And we have that tic-tac, and we're not aware of what it means until we're presented with this lack of health. And then all of a sudden we realize we're going to expire. And we've been so dumb for so many years thinking on the material side of life that we lose trace of what the tic-tac really means. The tic-tac means family, friends, giving, sharing, loving. Unfortunately, or we are very fortunate, that transplantation gave us the opportunity to realize what's really valuable in life. A lot of people live a daily life creating wealth and going from 9 to 9, forgetting about their kids. I didn't do that. I was super fortunate to be diagnosed at 25, reassess my life, downsize to the minimum. I've been a full-time father for my kids. And again, I'm grateful for this gift, but I take it one day at a time. Nothing changes. It's still one day at a time, every day as of transplant.
I can't say it any better. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just say if we could all live with the same gratitude as transplant patients, that's, I feel it, I see it, I'm trying to communicate it, because to me, it's the love that I feel and the gratitude and the
Mhm.
like, aha, I get it kind of.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we can talk about the medical all day long, but it's the emotional transformation that happens that really interests me as a human being, as a soul seeker, as a just somebody who wants to just live in the moment. And we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know.
Mhm.
Something could happen, but I just have to be present now.
I mean, I think it's just in an example. I used to tell my kids, look, you should be grateful. I remember their fear when they first found out. I was like, look, this is 1,000 times better. I lived it, I experienced it with my dad. I was fortunate to know that he was expiring and I had time to close every pending issue.
Right.
There's people that they leave their house and unfortunately they don't come back. And what if you left something that you were not done with it? So we need to appreciate that. And we need to teach the rest of the world, because as a species, we have selective memory. I thought COVID was going to change the world. I mean, we're so vulnerable. We're just a tiny little thing, a little microbe almost enclosed us for 2 years. But guess what? We forgot about it. We're back to our normal style of life and we don't care anymore. But I think transplant made me care about all these things and at least be selective that my new group of my island, my new island that I built, it's only with people that have the same philosophy of appreciating what life is day by day.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. We love you.
Yeah.
Well, does anyone have any closing thoughts other than?
And I won a brother in transplant, by the way. Got your brother.
We went to Mexico together, the two of our families. So,
Yeah, does David, do you have any questions at all?
Not really. I would like to say, thanks for having me. And Luigi, your story is really amazing and your outlook on life. And I think that's kind of how I have seen things for the last 2 or 3 months, more so than ever before.
Mhm.
And I think you're right in that, for various reasons, you have to look at why maybe this has touched us and then turn that into, positive. And that's what I expect to do. And that's what I expect to be doing all the way through. So.
Well, you got a family here.
Well, David, if at any time your wife, I know you're a young couple with young kids, if you need anything, your wife, she's only on the side, but if you need anything, my wife is there. If like what we do or what we've tried to do is like, if we meet someone that has kids, probably a 17-year-old, I give them my 17-year-old information and my kids. For example, I had another wonderful thing that one day my daughter shows up and she shows me this little thing on her back, and I didn't have my glasses, so I put on my glasses and she tattooed the date of my transplant, and she gives me an envelope. She became a bone marrow donor to pay it forward. So it could be a tragic thing, but if you look at the best side of it, it made my kids grow. It brought me all these new friends. It's an amazing experience. I would just look on the bright side, and we all fall down. We all have bad days, and there's issues where you're gonna feel unstable or insecure or afraid. I used to explain to my wife, look, the patient has different situations. I have to have a face for my kids, for my mom, for my siblings, for my wife, for my kids. But there's this time, this private time when you're alone in your bathroom. That's when you have to listen to yourself. You are the most important, David. Only you. If you're not well, your whole surrounding won't be well. If you ever need to talk, I can freely give you my phone number. I'm always open. 24/7. You have a friend in Houston or in Mexico where I am.
I appreciate that.
David,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add my 2 cents. What Leslie said before, the stories in her book are so real. It was informative, but most of all, it was a love story that everybody needs to read. And you're a part of a family now. And it's very important to have this group and to have Leslie, Luigi, Jerry, all the people in our secondhand support group have been so good to me. And I'm just so blessed to have this group. And anything you want to know or any questions you have, this group will come through for you.
Yeah.
And we're just so glad that you're a part of us now.
And we're doing this the first Wednesday of every month. I'm having this web thing. And this Saved by a Stranger is also a Facebook group that people can communicate with. And, you know, I usually end it with a little song. Be a giver of your liver when it's time to go, and you can help lots of people that you may not know. Don't be afraid to give so someone else can live. Be a giver of your liver when it's time to go.
Mhm.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah.
You too.
Okay.
Good night.
Good
See you
night,
next
guys.
month. Sign
Okay.
up.
Fine, thanks. It's great
Hey,
seeing everybody.
Jerry, next time I'm gonna give you the microphone.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I kept it on mute, you know.
We love you, Jerry.
Bye.
I love you guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.